Ananta,
Yes,
question. Oh, can you hear me?
I can.
Not sure if my volume's up. Just a sec.
I hear you fine.
Okay, good. Yeah, so just to kind of expand on that, one of the things I do every night is I sit in the hot tub and look up at the sky, and that's the most direct, one of the most direct ways for me to just realize how insignificant the I is. And I was thinking about something you said on Thursday night. You said about looking up in the sky and looking at all the stars and the planet, but also the space. And you said that the space that we see is everything and the stars and planets are nothing. But I guess my question is, well, aren't the stars and planets also just space? So is all of that just everything and nothing at the same time?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay.
That is correct, yes. I was only using that contrast as a way for your mind to wrap around it, because the mind needs distinction in order to understand. All understandings are based in some form of distinction. That's how knowledge is formed. That's how all understanding, all concepts, all thoughts are based in that. You see, so I was working with that, but the truth is, everything and nothing are the same thing.
Right.
Indeed they are, because everything's the same thing. Everything just is, equally, 100%. So, but that's not for the mind, because you don't need a mind to know that. In fact, the mind can't know that. But so for the mind, I'm saying space is everything, and the planets are nothing. But the planets are made of space. so everything's the same.
Right.
So that's correct. That's correct. You see, now that understanding came to you, and so that's the truth. That's the truth. But I'm only working with concepts here, and concepts are 100% lies.
Good to know.
I'm a dealer in lies. But they're better lies than the ones that you've been living with. Higher quality lies.
Much higher.
Yes. Hmm. Hmm.
Right, because otherwise, if we believe everything you say, then those just become beliefs. I know they're better concepts, but they're just adding to our library of beliefs.
Right. Well, like I said the other talk, these beliefs do have the power to erode the old beliefs. And once that happens, you don't need beliefs anymore. So it's dislodging the old beliefs that is difficult, because the conditioning is so strong that those beliefs have just solidified into something that you think is real, you see? And if we can just erode them to the point where they diminish and become unreal, then what's real can be known. It can be obvious. But while your beliefs in yourself as an individual are strong, they veil the truth, which is something that's beyond belief, beyond beliefs. But still, it's just a tool. All this Advaita, this through the intellect is a tool. It's through the mind, you see. But it's a tool that dislodges the attachment and the conditioning attached to thoughts and feelings, that sense of me.
But it seems like an arduous task to do just through the mind, like, because you've been for some time, harping on that we need to take that direct experience, or have the direct experience as best as we can throughout the day, every day. So, because it would just seem to me, trying to do it through replacing one set of beliefs with another better set of beliefs is still flawed, maybe. I don't know if the right word is.
You're correct. It's all flawed, but it does work.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about it is, look, I have all these words and concepts I'm passing along, the same as my gurus pass them along to me. But I can tell you the secret is that what's happening here has nothing to do with the words or concepts.
Right.
What's happening here is that presence of being, that presence that is with all of us all the time, is actually here in this moment. You can feel it, and you may not know what it is, which is just fine, because there's no way to know here what it is. But there is an essence in satsang. Satsang is the company of truth. So you're sitting with the actual thing that I'm referring to in concepts, but can't be touched by the concepts, but it's here. It's here. And I mean, this is why you keep coming back, because you can feel it. There's some attraction to it. You know it. So none of this is, the truth is not something that you're ever going to learn, because there's no way to learn it. There's no way to fit it into the tools that you use to learn, into the mind, but it's here and it's always here. So there was always this energy I felt with my gurus that was beyond words, but it was there, and it was in that presence. That was my spiritual practice, was to be in that presence. And eventually what happened was I recognized that presence all around me, all of the time. And it wasn't, and my gurus weren't with me in that moment, but it was there, and it was always there. So I had my puja, I had different things that brought that energy, that reminded me, and eventually I didn't need to be reminded anymore. And that's all there, it was just so primary. It was always there. So you work with this, with the concepts can be helpful. They can be helpful, but ultimately, this is not anything you can do anyway. But it's already being done. And when you realize that that witnessing is always going on, and you see, so the idea of these concepts eroding that conditioning you have of being an individual, when that me sense is eroded enough, diminished enough, then you're able to see that that witnessing is always happening. It's always there. It's always been there. Of course it has. Everything that I'm talking about, you will know in a way that you could never understand, but you will know it. You will know it in a way that you've always known it. And just that the body-mind caused an amnesia, a forgetfulness of who you are. So in that void, the ego filled that void with itself, you see. And all of a sudden, you were thinking you were something else. But the who that you are, you could never not be. There was just an amnesia at your birth. And it set in. And there was a forgetfulness. And so what we're doing now is just eroding that false sense of me enough that true sense of being, which is not a me, but it is, it just becomes obvious. And it's just reverting back to that essence that has always been there. But it gets veiled by the ego's filling that void, you see? And that's what egos do. Egos, the mind, it can't stand a vacuum. So when you sit there quietly, the mind is constantly interrupting, constantly going in and go, hello, oh, that. Even if you don't pay it any mind, it's still constantly trying to fill the void of that silence with itself. You see, that's its nature. That's what it does. So when you're born and then you have this disadvantage of falling into amnesia and forgetting who you are, the mind's nature, the ego's nature, is to fill that void with itself. And so now you're living in a world where you are thinking that you are who you're thinking you are. And in your life, the conditioning is teaching you how to refine that sense of yourself as a body mind. And you fall into that. Everyone falls into that. Everyone's in agreement. That's what's going on here. And everyone just slides into this habit of associating with themselves as a body mind. And you know, of course, that it's no big deal. The amnesia only lasts for a lifetime, you see. And it's not something that's ever remembered here anyway. It's because no one remembers it, because it's what you are. There's no need to remember it. It's just been veiled through the forgetfulness that is inherent in the experience. Experience is forgetfulness. That's all right. You see, and that's the adventure. That's the spiritual adventure is coming back home to that remembrance of who you are. And it's kind of fun. It's a fun trip. I loved it. I loved being a seeker. I loved the whole process. It was what I devoted my life to. It was like the coolest thing. So, you know, for me, that was it. That was it. You know, I was talking to Kelly last night. We had actually a spiritual talk. We only do that like, you know, once a year or so.
Yeah. Cool.
Mostly she just tolerates what I say. And then, but you know, it's like, how do I get there? So we were just talking about, what was I just saying before?
You and Kelly.
No, you were saying how the spiritual was your favorite part.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you enjoy the spiritual journey.
Oh yeah, you see now I did exactly what I wanted to do. That and she was looking at her life thinking, oh, I had all these opportunities and I didn't do them. And my father was pretty miserable man. And really, he was miserable because he did not do the things that he really wanted to do, because he was too wrapped up in being safe and having safety and security, and so he didn't do the things that he was really gifted at doing. He did the things that made his life seem safe, and then he ended up being miserable and depressed. I learned from that. That I look at life, and when a decision needed to be made, I could look and say, if I don't do this, am I going to regret it? And then I would just do it. If the answer was yes, I would try it and see. So I did. Some good came out of that. I learned that.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to put it.
And so the thing, what was going on with this, you know, in my case, you know, there a lot of sacrifices in terms of what I should do for security and everything else. It's like if the choice was being with Baba or having a really, you know, a good job, or getting, you know, becoming a professional in my whatever it was. It always it went to wherever my heart was. So then I got that thing, you know, go with the love in your heart, not the fear in your mind. And so I used that as a guidance in my life. So I loved it. I loved this spiritual path. It was totally fun. It was great. I met such interesting people. I got to hang out with really amazing beings. I got to travel the world and do all kinds of outrageous things. And I'm glad, you know, so it's like, it worked out well. I don't have any regrets looking back. Mm-hmm.
So when you you just said that when you recognized that presence that you felt, you know, with your gurus, that actually dwelled within you as you, was that before you finished your time with Ramesh or after?
Well, it was
Or
during.
during?
I was still with Ramesh at that time, but I wasn't seeing him as regular. It actually just, I had stopped seeing him for some time because I figured I had heard everything I was going to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And just circumstances happened where he was starting to tour, and so I was booked. I was doing my work, and I could arrange to pop by, and I did. I just saw him. I hadn't seen him for probably a few years. I don't know. I'm not good with time. And I saw him in Sharda, and it was like no time had passed. It was so nice. It was so great. And they were in Pennsylvania somewhere, and I met all the people taking care of him then. And so Wayne was taking care of the tour at that point. I said to Ramesh, I said, you know, Ramesh, you know, you're here in America. Why don't you come to Maui? You know, and you guys could come and visit me, and I won't even make you talk. And he goes, well, you won't stop me, will you? Anyhow, so I just left it at that, and like within the week, Wayne called and said, were you serious about having him? I said, of course. And he arranged for Ramesh to do a seminar in Maui. And so he stayed with me, and then that reconnected it. It wasn't long, it was within a couple years of that it ended. But I told Ramesh, I said to him, I said, Ramesh, I don't think I would ever really see you again. But it's so odd, you see, because I've spent all these years, decades now, traveling to see my gurus all around the world, this is the first time my guru has ever come to see me. And he just looked at me, he said, in this case, it was necessary. So that restarted it, and it was shortly, it wasn't, within a couple of years, I was done after that. But it resettled and it reminded, and what's going on here in satsang has nothing really to do with the words and the concepts and the process and all of that. I always thought it did, but it really isn't. Right now, there's just oneness. That's what's here. That's what's here. Right now, everyone is being embraced in this oneness. That's what's going on behind the scenes to you. But that's what's actually going on, and that will do the work. You see, that is actually doing the work. The seed has already been planted, and you can do what you can do to nurture the soil so that that seed can take root and grow. All right, but it's already been planted, and satsang is what plants it and holds it and keeps it as one, which it is. And all of us in this space, and in every space, but in this space obviously are one. It's just so. It's just so. And you don't have to get it. But I think most of you have a sense during and after satsang that that connection has happened. And it's happening on its own. It's happening. And that's the gift of a guru, you see, is that whether you know it or not, that connection is there. And it's the constant reminder that will follow you throughout the rest of your life. And if it's nurtured, then it'll take root, you see. So like that, Baba used to say, that if you do the practices, if you do the things that help, get you moving along in your spiritual journey, everything will take root and grow. If you don't, he said, then the Shakti insults you and leaves you alone. That's what Bob.
Yeah. Well said.
It took me a long time before I was able to make that solemn commitment not to forget. But once the solemn commitment was made, it was within a year. That was the last year of my sadhana. So far, I haven't forgotten.